Yo, what's good, man? Another scary, interesting reaction. I ain't watched one of these in a little minute. Caver's worst nightmare, cave exploring gone wrong. About to see what they talking about. Like, people really be. I say this all the time. I don't understand why people be going caving. I really don't. Like, what is it down there that you want to see for real? It's nothing but rocks, literally. What you looking for, bro? And then on top of that, you risking your life just to do it. Like, you real deal risking your life. Like, caving ain't no joke.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Scary Interesting. In this video, we're going to go over 3 more horrifying cave stories. One of these features a brutally tight squeeze, which really is the stuff of nightmares.
Like, bro,
Then,
what?
in contrast, the other 2 feature some of the largest caves anywhere on Earth. So as always, viewer discretion is advised.
Anything could go wrong down there. You underground, so it's like, you better not go by yourself. Even if you go with people, still, it's just like, bro, anything could go wrong. Not worth it at all.
If you enjoy Scary Interesting, odds are that you enjoy stories of humanity surviving, or sometimes not. National Rescue
Come on, man.
with the aims to enjoy also. There are also survived in China. First time they find them in 90.
There we go.
Robert, his brother and friend of theirs, spent the night camp near a cave named Hermit Cave. The 3 of them were in the area to do some wilderness activities and try out caving for the first time.
For the first time.
Hermit Cave.
What made you want to get into that, bro? It's your first time. You don't like, bro. This is caving. It's not no joke, bro. Like,
Located somewhere in the Woodland Park area near Fort Gibson Lake in Oklahoma, but unfortunately I couldn't find an exact location. Honestly though, with how this story ends, it's probably a good thing the cave isn't more well known. 200 million years ago, Oklahoma and the surrounding area were covered by water as part of an ancient sea. Over time, the water receded and evaporated, leaving behind huge deposits of minerals. Then, in addition to that, other geological processes pushed the underlying layer of gypsum close to the surface. Gypsum is a fairly soft and easily dissolved mineral, so over time, water carved out tunnels to form the caves present in Oklahoma and the surrounding area. Because of the leftover mineral deposits, some of these have large and beautiful crystal formations within them. Hermit Cave, however, is almost the exact opposite.
how?
The cave entrance is little more than a dirt-covered opening, 2 feet wide and 3 feet long, and the rest of it is just as unimpressive. After
2 feet wide, 3 feet long, like, bro.
the night camp nearby, the friend that was with Robert and his brother had to leave to go to work, but rather than leave with him, Robert and his brother wanted to do some exploring. In particular, although this was his first time caving, Robert wanted to go into Hermit Cave and see how far it went. But also, because this was his first time caving, Robert didn't really know what he was doing. It just seemed like a fun thing to do.
Yeah, bro. Like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't want to go down there. Talk about this seemed fun to do.
This meant he also wasn't all that prepared. He was just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He also only had one flashlight. No.
Like, who? Hold on. His brother and his friend got experience caving. Like, they didn't tell him nothing. Like, yo.
With him, Robert night camp nearby, wide and 3 feet long, and the rest of it was just as unimpressive. After spending the night camp nearby, the friend that was with Robert and his brother had to leave to go to work, but rather than leave with him, Robert and his brother wanted to do some exploring. In particular, although this was his first time caving, Robert wanted to go into Hermit
But
Cave
what
and
about
see
his
how far
his
it went.
brother though?
But also, because this was his first time caving, Robert didn't really know what he was doing. It just seemed like a fun thing to do. This meant he also wasn't all that prepared. He was just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He also only had one flashlight, no helmet, and no backup lights.
Come on, bro. You gotta think. Like, you can't be going in it. Like, it's not no joke, bro. What you got one flashlight for? Like, you ain't think about none of that. Your brother ain't like. How old is y'all, bro? Your brother don't got experience. He said it's your first time. I'm assuming the brother got experience because why? He would have said that the brother, it was the brother first time too. So it's like, damn, he should have told you all that. Think it's a game.
So likely didn't know about the bad air present within the cave. This occurs when a cave has poor circulation and air inside isn't safe to breathe for long periods of time. But either way, after squeezing through the small opening, Robert and his brother continued on through the increasingly tight passages. Eventually, Robert went through a small side passage that seemed to narrow even further. Then he got 50 feet in, then 100 feet in, and it was becoming so tight it was hard to even take a full breath. Then at 150
like,
feet,
how is that
the
fun to you,
restriction
bro?
was the smallest point they've gotten to.
How is that fun to you?
From Robert's vantage point, the tunnel seemed to angle downwards.
You should have been turned around.
Out again afterward. So after thinking about it for a moment, he decided to try to squeeze through it. Head first.
It's like, bro, you literally doing this to yourself, like.
Pushed his body forward with his arms at his sides as the tunnel squeezed him tighter and tighter.
Like, what you
After
think will
some
happen?
Robert came to a stop and realized he was fully wedged. It was too tight to.
What you thought was gonna happen, bro?
Angle because his arms were pinned by his sides. He didn't have enough leverage to push himself backward. Even worse, he was stuck with his face right above the wet, muddy floor of the cave. After trying desperately to free himself with no luck, his brother tried as well, but either couldn't reach him or just couldn't pull him out. So with no other option, his brother was forced to leave to go get help, leaving Robert in this inverted position. Rescue teams and paramedics arrived shortly after, and Robert's brother led them to the little dirt opening. Then, over the next several hours, teams worked to remove dirt and rocks to widen the area to reach Robert to get him out. The entire time they were doing this as well, air had to be pumped into the cave because of how bad the air quality was inside. On top of that, even the thinnest paramedic to enter the cave couldn't even take full breaths part of the way to the restriction. Finally, they would reach Robert at 3 p.m., 5 hours after he'd gotten stuck, and tragically, he was dead. He was face down in the mud and seemed to have died of suffocation. His body was eventually pulled out of the cave, but it's not clear if he passed out due to poor air quality or if he just couldn't hold himself up and out of the mud.
Probably both, but especially since he was like, they said he was like damn near upside down. All that blood rushing to his head. He's sitting there for 5 hours, bro. It's like, yeah. Cave squeezing tight against his chest, no room. It's like, I don't know what he thought was gonna happen though. Like, bro, you said you was getting, and keep going. It's getting tighter and tighter. You never got enough space to move your arms, bro. And you decide to push forward more and get completely stuck. I don't know what to say, bro. That's crazy.
The tallest, most prominent, and probably the most impressive mountain in the Canadian Rockies is Mount Robson, standing at almost 13,000 feet or 4,000 meters. A few miles east of Mount Robson is another mountain named Trio Mountain, which is far less impressive in height. However, it's not the mountain itself that's impressive, it's what's inside of it. The closest and only road running through this incredibly remote stretch of mountains is the Yellowhead Highway. The highway itself sits at 3,000 feet elevation. Then another almost 4,000 feet up from there, on the side of Trio Mountain, is the opening to the second deepest cave in Canada, named Arctimus Cave.
In Canada, he said?
At 1,760 feet deep, or 536 meters deep, it's also one of the deepest caves anywhere on Earth.
1,000 feet?
Not only is it massive in size, but it's also incredibly difficult to get to. On foot, it's a 20-kilometer hike through forests and around mountains from the highway, which is usually done for several days.
What? Bro, it's a so you telling me on feet it take literally days to get there, bro? Like, why do you want to go? You in the middle of nowhere, bro. If something happened, then it's like, bro, it's gonna take long for the people to get there. It's like y'all don't think about none of that, bro. Or y'all just don't care. It just give y'all that much of a rush. Y'all like, all right, fuck, I'm gonna risk my life.
Flying in by helicopter is most efficient, but obviously, for most, that's prohibitively costly. On top of that, although Arctimus may be famous for its depth, that's only part of what makes it difficult. The descent to the bottom is broken up into 2 sections, and the very first cavers have to traverse is known as the Endless Climb. Much of this section is either extremely steep or completely vertical shafts. The cave does level out the deeper you go, but either way, this means cavers have to rappel down what are essentially cliff faces inside a cave. Many of these are also filled with ice-cold runoff from the surrounding mountains and glaciers. On the afternoon of October 17, 1991, Rick Black, Chris Zimmerman, Hugo Moe,
Boy named Rick
and
Black
himself readied themselves to be airlifted to the entrance of Arctimus Cave. Rick, Chris, and Hugo were seasonal rangers at Mount Robson Adventure Park, and all 4 of the men were experienced cavers. After the helicopter dropped the men up
He said all of them experience.
inside the entrance to Arctimus Cave, they wasted little time getting the base camp set up. Then they split into 2 groups. First, Rick and Chris entered. Then, 3 hours later, Ron and Hugo followed, and they all planned to meet up later on.
Wait, what? Why they went at different times like that?
These caves, they wasted little time getting the base camp set up. Then they split into two groups. First, Rick and Chris entered. Then, 3 hours later, Ron and Hugo followed.
They should have all stayed together, bro. That was the best way to do it. One after another go down. You know, but two go, and then 3 hours later, the next three go. Nah.
to meet up later on. For the next few hours, they would work their way deeper and deeper into the earth. When they reached a depth of around 1,300 feet or 400 meters at 11:30 that night, they arrived at a vertical shaft called the Refresher. At about 29 feet between the ledge of the Refresher to the floor below, it's not the most intimidating drop in the entire cave, but what does make it tricky, though, is the full-on frigid waterfall that carers have to rappel down and climb back up through. It's almost impossible to get through without getting soaked. Either way, once secured, they descended the Refresher one at a time. Then once they were at the bottom, they went to descend the next section. When it was Rick's turn, he grabbed hold of the rope, performed a final safety check, and inched his way across the ledge. Then, the moment after the rope went taut with the full weight of Rick's body on one end, it went slack. What Rick didn't know was that what he had tied the rope to wasn't bedrock. It was actually an unstable 400-kilogram boulder.
Yeah, and he said he's experienced. That's what I'm saying, bro. It don't matter. I don't care how much experience you got, bro. Like it's like anything can happen. Mistakes happen. It's like well, he tied the rope to a piece of rock that's not stable. Now what you about to do? Whole rope gone.
So when he started to move, his weight caused the boulder to come free and then slide down on top of him. Rick's
Oh,
pelvis was then crushed by the boulder. He was knocked unconscious. The others quickly rushed to Rick's aid. To their relief, he was alive, but the pain of his injuries was intense, and he was slurring his words when he came to. They weren't sure the full extent of his injuries, but his pelvis was likely broken at the very least. There was no chance he was getting out under his own power.
yeah, nah.
Because they were avid cavers, the men were knowledgeable and versed in it, but Rick needed much more serious medical attention. They really had just two options. They could try to carry Rick out, or two of them could leave in search of help. The others stayed with Rick in the cave.
Yeah. Like it's 5 of y'all. Yeah. Had two of them go get help. Two of them stay in the cave. Cause I was about to, cause like how they go help them get out, bro? Ain't they in there like, well, they ain't get that deep in the cave, I think yet. They probably could bring them on. They might be able to. If it's not like too many tight corners, like yeah, two of them leave, go and get help. Why would they try and get them on?
At first, they tried to carry him, but they only moved him a few feet before he screamed for them to stop. Without a proper
Yeah, his pelvis
there was
broke.
no way they could get him out without causing more damage.
Bruh.
So, with nothing else to do, they had to split up. Chris stayed with Rick, and then Hugo and Ron left to get help. It's difficult to put into perspective just how daunting of a mission this was. Some caves had parking lots right outside the entrance, and getting out of Arkham was only part of the battle. The only fast way on or off the mountain was by helicopter, but Hugo and Ron didn't have any way to get in touch with the pilot. Their emergency radio also failed to make contact with the tower, so in order to call emergency services, they would need to climb out of the cave, then walk the 20 kilometers to the highway and flag someone down.
That's what I'm. See, look, that's exactly what I said, bro. On top of y'all doing caving, y'all going to one that's in the middle of nowhere, bro. Dude said the best way to get there by helicopter. You gotta walk, like how many kilometers just to the highway just to get signal. You feel me? You gotta think about all that stuff. Like
Just getting back to the entrance took almost 5 hours. Then when they finally reached the highway,
5 hours.
15 hours had passed since they left Rick and Chris.
Yeah, bro. Y'all gotta think of like, bro. This is you hear like this sound crazy. It took dude 5 hours, came back 14 since they like.
Forest all night. After Hugo and Ron left, Chris huddled next to Rick to keep him as warm as possible. Temperatures at that depth were freezing. It was only a matter of time before they got hypothermic. Making things worse, they were in pitch blackness. To preserve their light as much as possible, both men turned their headlamps off and listened to the water pouring around them. There was little more they could do other than shiver and wait for help to arrive. As soon as the RCMP were alerted to Rick's ordeal in the afternoon of October 18th,
The next day,
multiple fronts. The provincial government sent 3 planes to Vancouver Island to pick up cavers with rescue training to assist in the effort to save Rick. Recreational cavers also drove in from all over to offer their help too. At first light in the morning of October 19th, almost 36 hours after the incident, a helicopter dropped off the first rescuers and then returned.
That's way too long, bro. 30 a day and some change, bro. You been in there like that's how long it took people. It took to get some help. A day, over 24-hour day or some change, bro. You would have like.
While some rescue personnel were being transported, others set up a large headquarters with tents in the valley below the cave. Unfortunately, Rick and Chris were oblivious to how much activity was going on outside the cave to reach them, and hope was fading on the morning of the 19th. Their shivering had gotten much worse, and by then, Chris, who was completely uninjured, was deteriorating right alongside Rick. About 30 hours into this, Rick turned to Chris and urged him to leave the cave. If things kept going like this, they'd both be dead within hours. Chris initially protested, but Rick insisted he leave, but he still had enough in him to make it to the entrance. He had to think about it for a moment, but reluctantly, Chris gathered up his gear and told Rick that he'd be back for him and help to bring him home. Sometime around midday, Chris spotted headlamps in the tunnel ahead of him. The first group of rescuers were a fair distance into the cave already, and they rushed to Chris when they saw him. Chris then told them he was fine and provided more information on Rick's condition before continuing on to the cave entrance. Then, finally that afternoon, Chris appeared at the entrance of the cave and was immediately tended to. Emergency personnel stabilized him before he was airlifted to a nearby hospital to be treated for hypothermia. Around the same time, rescuers carrying medical equipment, heating pads, and dry clothing finally managed Rick, but they were too late. Rick died shortly before their arrival. The news eventually made its way through to the rescue team, and many burst into tears. Since the caving community is relatively small, many of them knew Rick well.
Yeah, that's sad, bro. It ain't worth it for real. You shouldn't like people shouldn't play with their life like that, bro. You get one life, bro. On a cave and all that. It's like, come on, bro. Even if like, that's what I was saying. Like, you should have if they would have been at a cave that was closer, like he said, some caves got parking lots. You feel me? Something like that. You would have been straight. I'm pretty sure they would have been able to get there way quicker. Took them a whole day and some change just to get some help. Like, nah, you gotta think about all that stuff, bro. Come with the proper equipment. You gotta look at the location the cave at, take that into consideration, like just in case something happened. Yeah, you gotta think about all that, man. I don't care how much experience you got.
After the initial shock of Rick's death passed, the rescue became a recovery mission. Search and rescue would need another 2 days, where several teams of 10 to carry Rick's body out of Arcturus Cave. An autopsy was then performed, and the coroner determined there was no scenario in which Rick would survive the ordeal. The moment that rock slipped, his fate was sealed. The boulder had caused catastrophic damage to Rick's body, including many of his major organs. Even with immediate medical attention at a well-equipped hospital, the result would have been the same.
Oh, damn. So he said, nah, he would have died either way. All because of that boulder. He tied it to, it was in a strong piece.
The autopsy also showed that Rick's cause of death were the injuries he suffered and not hypothermia, like many of the rescuers thought was the case. To this day, the rescue within Arcturus Cave is the most extensive in Canadian history.